meeting is now being recorded.
If you want to view a full screen, there's sort of a circle with 4 arrows to the top right next to the question mark if you want to get a better view of the screen, and that should get you all up and running. So we'll now get on with the webinar. So just moving on to the next slide. The agenda for the invitation will cover off 4 topics in relation to utilizing, I guess, upstream processes to drive better governance, visibility, and results in procurement. I'll run through a couple of slides on the whys of why we should have these systems in place, and then Casey will go through on the hows and give us an insight into the operations of the system. Right, let's get on with the next slide. So essentially, I guess, why do we use these procurement systems? Upstream procurement processes really are the key for us to secure strong processes in the procurement space, and a view that that's where the value is created, whilst downstream is where it's captured. And later on, I'll come into essentially the contract is about locking in that value. From getting the best out of your suppliers from a sourcing perspective, I guess before we capture the value, we have to make sure we've got the right supplier delivering the right product to the right place, and from there drive value through the process and into the business. So are we getting the best value from our suppliers, getting a higher realization rate of negotiated savings, getting our suppliers guided into the right agreement using templates, trying to do this efficiently, effectively in a collaborative manner, and ultimately, I guess, getting through more sourcing events, more contract events, and engaging with our suppliers in a way that we can look to drive improvement for both parties. There's the opportunity to introduce new functions such as dynamic payment discounts. But ultimately, we want to try and move into a structured process which is repeatable, which is visible to both parties. And that's ultimately how we're going to drive value from our suppliers. Ensuring efficiency in the procurement process. Many organizations have contracts. When you need them, you can't find them. When we need approvals, we've got to run around. So I guess we're looking for significant efficiency improvements through automation. That's both through the contracting and sourcing processes, trying not to enter data twice, so that we're using templates. We're catching the information that's entered by suppliers and reusing that. We've got an efficient onboarding process, tenders, etc. Probably one of the bigger ones is about reducing off-system buying, and that comes back to having processes that are in place, that everyone's clear on, everyone knows how to use, the data management, and really using our suppliers to capture that. And we can stretch out into in the Ariba context, into the network, so that we enter data once and we utilize that multiple times. The last one, running around looking for contracts, reducing the level of rework, trying to use processes that alert us to when contracts are expiring, and ultimately putting all that together. Research, and in this case from Aberdeen, is telling us that there's about a 13% decrease in the cost of supplies and services by driving efficiency through the procurement processes, and certainly driving better processes through, whether it's using reverse auctions, RFPs, private tenders, etc., but automating that process so that it is a lot more efficient. So Casey, moving on to the next slide. The other component, obviously, why we want to put this in place is around risk. Casey, I think we've jumped on 2 slides. Yep. Addressing risk so that we can avoid not just corruption but bad practice. certainly, some research was done by PwC a couple of years ago in terms of cracking down in the US market, identifies 4 risks around information management, procurement processes, vendor maintenance, and invoice and payment processing. And ultimately, where we have operational gaps, we increase the procurement risk. So a lack of controls around what vendors we're using, what contracts we're using, and the visibility around that. Non-compliance to process, so the more we can guide people through a standard process, the better. Not leveraging buying power by having that history on spend, and organizational risk around supply markets, so doing proper vendor evaluations and being prompted to do those in time. So we've got the standard things around 3-way matching, and we tend to focus on the downstream piece of purchase order matching goods receipt and payments. But actually upstream, we've got to make sure that purchase order prices are properly approved and agreed, and we're controlling what's in there at that point, and making sure we're getting value for money. System processes to make sure that we can manage that, and a key part of that is 360-degree feedback, so using functions to get the view of the business, and visibility into commitments. And then lastly, we can do all these things, but if we can't manage the process and measure performance, then we don't drive the improvement through the business. And so the last pillar of this is about adherence to terms. So clearly we need to have contracts that are based off the sourcing and negotiated processes. We need to make it easier for people to do the right thing. We need to use the tools that are there, and we need to make it easier for suppliers so that they've got visibility in terms of the process. We've got regular capture points, and we've got a factual-based review and work lists to follow up on specific activities. So that's probably just a very high level. I don't want to waste too much time on the intro. So Casey, just moving on before we get into the intro. One of the things with doing the demonstration now and having the session is that for many of you who are watching it, we're going to be demonstrating on the old UI. The new UI came out yesterday, so we won't have had time to work on a demo in that space, but I just wanted to make you all aware of some of the functions and features that we've got coming out of that new UI. Certainly for anyone who's looked at in the SAP space, Fiori, but from an Ariba perspective, work anywhere. So the same applications are available through desktop, mobile, tablet. You can see the look and feel of dashboards is very different to if you have seen the traditional Ariba, and a lot cleaner, crisper, task-orientated. Some of the data visualization tools, and there's some fantastic analytical tools to drive that. The look and feel of the shopping cart is very much eBay-like, and the support around that. So if you want some more information, there have been a couple of posts on the LinkedIn Ariba company page over the past sort of 3 days. There's some older ones as well from when Sapphire was on in April, but certainly just want to give you that context. Okay. So with that, I'll hand over to Casey and let her take you through essentially not the why, but the how, and a view of the functionality and processes that we can utilize to achieve some of those outcomes, be they compliance, measuring, performance, etc. Casey, to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris, and good morning, everyone. My name is Casey, as Chris introduced earlier, and in the next 30 minutes or so, I'll take you through a very quick end-to-end demo of how systems like Ariba, upstream applications in this case, help organizations address the points that Chris has described. I will not attempt to cover all of the available features, obviously due to the limited time, but we'll cover the key features and functionalities of the source to contract solution. So we'll begin the demo by looking at how organizations get visibility on their spend and identify potential savings opportunities. What I'm showing right now is the Ariba dashboard, and as Chris mentioned, the UI has been changed, but the key, the functionality remains the same. We'll look at Ariba spend visibility, which is essentially the reporting module within Ariba. It provides a consolidated and classified analysis of an organization's spend, and that spend could potentially be coming from different systems or data sources. So how it works really is that we take the spend information coming from an organization's system or systems, so say PO and invoice spend, as well as contract information tied to those spend, load that into Ariba, and then report on that. What it does, obviously, then is to allow the organizations to effectively analyze their spend holistically, identify the risk, and also develop sourcing strategies. The system comes with a number of prepackaged reports that can be used by all users, and again, they're readily available, and users are able to modify those based on their needs as needed. Let's look at one example here. We have compliance reports available out of the box, and these are reports that really look at how contracts are being utilized from on the purchasing side. We can look at on-contract and off-contract spend and really identify if the company is really utilizing the negotiated contracts that we have negotiated with the suppliers. The system also comes with reports relating to opportunity savings searches, an example of which is this supplier fragmentation report, which analyzes, for each category, how many suppliers do I have, what's my spend essentially for those categories. And the system allows an easy classification of the data, and I'm able to drill down further to different categories. So if we look at IT, for example, in this demo, we'll look at specifically IT. I can drill down to which subcategories of IT I might have opportunities on. And from here, I can further drill down to other information such as which accounts, which supplier. So I can look at all the suppliers I have and how much am I spending for each supplier, and potentially get the sourcing savings opportunities from there. So our system, again, as I mentioned, is also a key filter here to look at which parts of my company is spending on IT hardware. So we'll take that IT hardware example for the next parts of the demos here. And our scenario would be that we will create a sourcing project related to the IT hardware category. So now we're going to switch into the Ariba sourcing module. And for that, I'll be creating and initiating a sourcing project. This is the header level information for sourcing. I'll just put in a meaningful title here. And this is a similar look and feel as the rest of the documents that we'll look at today. I'll select a full project to show you the full project management capabilities of the system as soon as we create this. And then fill in the information below, which one feeds into my reporting later on, and also an important piece to these information that we are filling in here is that they can essentially drive workflows and other specific tasks. So if we talk about projects related to IT, for example, that can go through different process steps as compared to purchasing items or services for marketing, for example. So these information can be used to drive those logic within the system. Below you will see that I have a template available, and templates are very powerful within the application because It's essentially the way the system enforces and automates the process of sourcing, and later on we'll see it in the contract management piece as well as in the supplier performance piece. It essentially defaults all the documents that I would need within that project and also automate the tasks as well as the approvals and workflows within the process. So now we are in the sourcing project workspace. Again, you'll see the same look and feel later on. You'll see the documents are pre-populated here, so all the deliverables that I need to complete as part of a sourcing project are all defaulted here. And again, this makes this a powerful tool because you can for each category you can put in any category specific documents that need to be completed in a project. The tasks are also automatically pre-populated, so this is where you can automate the process and really put in the tasks that need to be completed for a project. The theme can also be defaulted from the template, and you can put in rules to say who needs to be involved in what types of projects. Again, utilizing the information that we have put in at the beginning of the creation of the project. Now let's look at the different tasks within the project. As I mentioned, we get the tasks from the template, and each task is assigned to a specific owner. And like any project management tool, it will take care of assigning who the owner is, tracking the status of the task, as well as identifying the due dates and identifying the milestones and setting up predecessors for the project. The owners will be receiving email notifications as they need to complete the tasks, and they'll just simply need to mark those as completed as the tasks are being completed. Now, there will be tasks that can be associated with a specific document. So in this particular example, preparing procurement plan is a task and a document is tied to it, meaning this is a key deliverable that needs to be completed as part of that task. And that means that I won't be able to complete this particular task without actually completing that document. And updating that document is very easy. The Ariba applications have integration with the Microsoft document, so that I'll just have to open the document and make my updates, and the system will automatically detect any changes to that document. All the versions are stored in the system as well, so for audit purposes, those are all available. Another type of task that is managed within the sourcing module are approval-related tasks, which is very useful for activities such as stage gate reviews or any final sign-offs. And here, in this example, the procurement plan is sent out to a list of predefined approvers. Again, the template takes care of this particular workflow. So it identifies who needs to approve based on what commodity I'm purchasing, how much I'm purchasing, and other information that I could base the workflow on. More approvals can be added by the project manager or project owner, but obviously he won't be able to remove the ones that are in the template. Now we go ahead and submit that, and that will be sent out to the approvals for review and sign off. Now, the next key feature that we'll look at is probably one of the key features of Ariba sourcing is managing the events such as RFPs, auctions, RFIs. And in this example, we have selected to create an RFP when we were creating the project. So we'll look at very quickly how that is done in the system and how we collaborate with the supplier using the tool itself. So we'll go ahead and initiate the creation of our RFP. Again, this is part of the template, so part of the tasks that we have in the project. And we create the event. RFPs will also have templates within the system, so we'll just select one. The system comes with standard templates, or you can also create your own templates as needed. And then we'll build our RFPs by, first of all, inviting the participants or suppliers. I can select the suppliers from my existing supplier base, or I can also broadcast my need. If I want to extend the invitations to potential new suppliers, I can do that by creating a supplier posting in the Ariba network. So I can, again, broadcast that need to a subset of suppliers. So I can say I can search for potential suppliers within a specific region, serving a specific category, etc. We'll go ahead and invite suppliers from our existing supplier base. So in this case, I invited 3 suppliers. And then we'll go to creating our content, meaning the content of the RFP. And in this case, we have a few options. So we can build the content online here in the tool, or we can also pull the content out of previously created events, or if I have templates set up for the content, then I can pull that from my content library. So that's what I'm going to do in this case. So I'll just pull that into my current RFPs and make any updates as needed. If you have any standard questions that you always ask in your RFPs, you can create a template for that and just put it in the template, and those will be automatically pulled in to your project. You can also set up pre-grading, so scoring can be configured before you send out the RFPs. So based on the answers, just put a weight to the answers and determine the grades for that, and which will later on be used for the evaluation and feedback for the suppliers. We'll go ahead and publish this. Once the RFP is published and the response starts, then the suppliers will receive an email notification similar to what I'm showing right now for them to respond to the RFP. Now let's change our hats and look at very quickly what the supplier sees. So the supplier gets the email and will be able to access the event through its Ariba network account. So again, I'm logged on as a supplier in this point. And you will see that here the supplier can decline to respond or actually respond to the RFPs. All the details that we put into the RFP earlier will be visible to the supplier. We'll go ahead and respond here, and then submit that as our response. Now we go back to Ariba as the buyer. As we get responses from the suppliers, we'll see a side-by-side comparison of the responses from, in this case, the 3 suppliers, including a side-by-side comparison of the prices for the lots. And also because we have enabled scoring, we can easily look at the participant score, so the system automatically computes that based on the weights and that we've set up earlier, as well as the responses. And that could be the basis for the awarding. The system can also provide some scenarios for the sourcing manager. So to look at which supplier has the lowest price, or if I want to expand that to multiple suppliers, how much will I save, etc. we'll go ahead and do the awarding at this point. So we do it again at that RFP level. So we'll go ahead and select J. Gray in this example as the awarded supplier. I can select multiple suppliers, but I'll just select one in this case. And then I'll go ahead and submit that for award, and the email notifications will be sent out to J. Gray as well as to the non-awarded participants. So that's a very, very quick view of the sourcing piece. Now, after awarding the participant, the logical step would be to start thinking about the contracting piece. So we will now move to the Ariba contract management piece, which deals essentially with paperless contract authoring, as well as facilitates the negotiations with the suppliers. Now I can create the contract separately from the RFP, so I can do that, or I can also initiate the contract from this page, from the awarded RFP or from the sourcing project. There's a contract button as you see on the right-hand side of the screen, and what that does is that I can initiate the contract from here, and I'll go ahead and create a new contract for J. Gray, or I could add this to an existing contract if that's the case. And then this will trigger the creation of a contract workspace, which again, as you see here, has a very similar look and feel as the sourcing project that we have created earlier. Because we have copied it from a sourcing project, it has defaulted a lot of the information on the left side of the screen. So we'll just go ahead and update the contract-specific fields like the effective dates and expiration dates. And again, templates also are available for contracts to automate that contracting process, so to facilitate that process automatically. So when we create the workspace here, it will pre-populate it based on the template I have selected. So the contract document, so pricing terms, the main agreement, and final contract. We'll focus on the authoring piece in the next few minutes here, and also the negotiation. So the main task for contracting is reviewing the main agreement, in this case, or the contracts. So when we open the document, you'll see again, because the system is integrated with the Microsoft applications, the clauses are all combined in one document, and it takes information from the details that we have entered earlier on from the workspace, like the expiration dates. Or I can also look at the clauses of that main agreement in an outline view within the system. So what I'm showing right now is essentially just an online view of the Word document that I showed. And this is used to really review the clauses independently or individually. And the system maintains a clause library as well. So all the clauses that are pre-approved can be loaded into the system, and the contract authors can substitute any of the clauses here as needed. Again, pulling this from the clause library. Or if for some reason they need to modify it to a non-standard clause, then that can be done as well directly in the document. So they can go ahead and make some modifications to the agreement. So instead of getting it from a pre-approved clause, we can modify this. And obviously, workflows can be added so that approvals can be are required if non-standard clauses are added. So when we save this, the system will detect the changes and will be saved into the system. All the versions are stored, so again, an audit trail of the changes can be accessed anytime for compliance purposes. Once we're done with the agreement, the other tasks that are available would be things like, or tasks like reviewing it with legal or any other required teams to review the document. And then the other main task that we wanted to show is the negotiation piece, which is collaborating with or working directly with the supplier to review the contract terms as well as the contract language. So in this particular task, we attached the main agreement that was created and reviewed and approved by the organization. We select the reviewer to be John Gray, who is the supplier. We can add an external reviewer if we have to. So these are users who don't necessarily have access to the system but can receive a copy of the main agreement and provide feedback through email. And this process can be iterative. So I'm doing this as round one, but obviously several rounds can be done as part of the reviews. Once I submit this, it will send a notification to our supplier, John Gray, reminding him of the task. And he can perform the reviews online through his Ariba network account. So again, similar to the RFP response, the negotiation task is done through the Ariba network account as well. So you see here, this is round 2 of the negotiations. And from here, you can obviously review the document and create a counter proposal if needed. Or in this case, we'll just go ahead and accept the proposal. And then the final steps, some examples of final steps would be final reviews and approvals of the contract. So again, this can be automated through the use of workflows within the templates. In this particular example, we say the director and the project owner would have to do the final approval. The system also, by the way, can do electronic signatures if that's required. And then we'll go ahead and execute the agreement and complete the final tasks for the authoring piece and negotiations piece. From a maintenance standpoint after this, so once the contract is fully operational, the system will take care of the maintenance piece, meaning if it's nearing expiration, it will send out the notification to the correct people to start reviewing it. It handles amendments as well or renewals. And from a compliance standpoint and integration standpoint as well, as soon as this is operational, we can extract the information of the contracts, including the terms, and send that to the purchasing systems. If purchasing is done out of Ariba, then tying this and send that information back to the purchasing systems, track the compliance there, and purchase against those contracts in the purchasing systems, and tying this back to the spend visibility piece that we saw earlier. We then take that information from those systems and load that back into Ariba to report on the compliance for these contracts. Now we go back to our supplier here, J. Gray, and the next question would be, how do we measure that supplier's performance? And here we now switch to the Ariba supplier information and performance management module, or I'll just call it SIPM or SPM in some cases. And this particular module provides visibility on how the suppliers are performing against a company's KPIs, for example. So let's look at one example of a report here. Again, a standard report in the system on supplier performance, which is, again, available for users who need to have access to this type of information. You'll see that the report will show the KPIs on the left, and KPIs can be configured within the system. So an organization would be able to set up their own KPIs within the system and measure the supplier performance against those. You'll see a summary of the supplier's performance for the first 2 quarters of 2015, and I can drill down to specific suppliers, in this case, J. Gray, to look at, in summary, how he's doing for Q2. And I can further look at J. Gray's profile within the system. So each supplier has this profile where I can see all the company information and contacts, as well as things like certificates, certificates can be stored here. And also the system provides a 360 report to show at a very granular level what contracts you have for the supplier, the performance of that specific supplier, and how many RFPs, and also how much savings we have received from dealing with the supplier. And then a scorecard is also visible below. Now we'll look at in detail how that scorecard is essentially populated. We create a supplier performance management project, or SPM project. So again, very similar to how sourcing and contract workspaces are set up. So the purpose of this is to have a workspace to track the performance of each supplier. So we'll create a quarterly project, SPM project for J. Gray. And again, the documents, because we've created it out of a template, will be pre-populated. And for SPM projects, the main documents are your surveys, the scorecards, and also any corrective action plan documents if required. We'll look at some of the tasks here related to supplier performance, specifically the survey, which is a way to capture suppliers' performance from the company's users, or for those users who work with the suppliers. So we'll set up this survey and invite participants. Obviously, participants will be coming from the organization. I've invited 2 of them. And then you'll see a sample survey here, which is, again, taken from the template. So this can be used across all your suppliers to consistently track the performance of suppliers. Also, another important feature is scoring using that survey. So for each answer, you can put in the weights and score associated with each answer. I'll go ahead and publish this survey, and as soon as I publish this, it will be sent out to the participants. And I've invited Alice and Todd to respond here. And again, very similar to the RFP responses, I can have a side-by-side comparison of the answers. But probably more interestingly, I can see the scores, or the system will summarize the scores based on the responses from the participants and based on the weights and grades that I've set up earlier. And if I need to look at the details of the scoring, I can also access that from here. So from that from that survey, a lot of activities obviously can follow, including summarizing the results, developing an action plan for the supplier if there are areas that he's struggling with, and also to review it with the supplier. The scorecard is just a summary of the scores based on the survey, as you can see here. And you can also comment this. And you can show this as well to the supplier if that is required, or keep it within the company. And like I said, corrective action plans can be created after that survey. And the review with the supplier can be added as a task here. Because I've set this up as quarterly, the system will automatically schedule the next review. So you'll see a quarterly performance review for September in this case. And again, the system will do that automatically, so it saves time from people really do that manually. That actually concludes our demo of the key applications here, the upstream application. So just to summarize and tie this back to Chris's introduction, so just some key points. We have seen how Ariba sourcing not only automates the process, but also makes it easier for buyers to identify, see, and manage the value they get from the suppliers. And in terms of ensuring efficiency within the procurement group, we've looked at how the solution helps organizations in this area through the use of templates, automated workflows, and not just to automate the task, but also to enforce compliance and also to enforce any corporate controls. And the automation of the process obviously takes away the manual effort in managing the tasks and allows procurement to focus on the more strategic tasks. In terms of risk of corruption within the procurement process, we looked at how contract management and reporting provide visibility to an organization's spend and allows them to analyze what they are buying, identify the risks, and also report on compliance against contracts and identify more opportunities. And we also have seen how Ariba measures and tracks suppliers' performance through the use of KPIs, surveys, and reporting that provides an organization an overall picture of their suppliers' performance. And at the same time, providing a very detailed level of how each supplier is measuring against those contract and negotiated terms and targets. I'll hand it back over to you, Chris, for any questions.
Okay. Thanks, Casey, for that insight into sort of at a high level what's available. We're going to take questions. I'm conscious we have run a little bit over. So I guess there's no Q&As that have been lodged online. Maybe, Chelsea, do you want to just unmute and we'll see if anyone's got any quick questions?
All guests have been unmuted.
Wrap up. So not sure if anyone does have any questions on the line that we can answer or take away and come back to you with.
Hello, it's Mick Mason here.
Yeah, hi, Mick.
I have a question. With the supplier base, can you invite suppliers that are outside of the Ariba network?
Casey, are you there?
Sorry, I was having some issues with the phone here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
So, if we use that button that I showed on create supplier posting, that is that's sent out to the network. So, there's nothing preventing from or a user from inviting someone else outside of the network, that they will need to get an account to participate online.
Okay, so that they get that account from Ariba?
Yeah, and it's, yeah. They need to subscribe, yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, well, if we've got no other questions, I'll just wrap up then. So, thanks everyone for making the time to attend. We will run a webinar probably in about a month's time, just across the new Ariba interface and a roadmap of any key functions that are coming out in the next release and have recently come out, just to keep people up to speed with what's happening there. We'll also have something coming up around navigating these procurement solutions, so looking at the combinations of, I guess, ERP, SRM, Fieldglass, Ariba, and we'll be taking that discussion right through to the mastering supply chain. So happy to deal with any questions or anything in advance around that. For any further information, I think I mentioned earlier, the Ariba LinkedIn site has information, and obviously the websites as well. And for those on the call, if you haven't opted out, Chelsea will reach out to you afterwards just to see if there's anything that you would like further information on, or alternatively, if we can just get your feedback on what was good, what wasn't, if there's anything else you would like to see in future webinars. We'd like to try and use this as an education process for all of you out there. So that probably brings us up to a close. Thanks everyone for your time, and we'll call it a day. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.